Hey everyone, and welcome to 121 in Flux. I am Peter, that is Connor, and we talk about movies on this show, and we are still catching up in 2018 movies in time for making our top 10 lists, which admittedly, if you're watching this publicly on YouTube, that's already been up, that top 10, because this goes up early on Patreon, which will be up for a few days before that top 10.
So you already know whether or not this made the cut.
You do indeed. We're going to be talking about Roma, which is Alfonso Cuarón's Netflix film from late last year. It's obviously nominated for a bunch of awards. It was one that we knew we both wanted to check out. We both loved the trailer when it came out. We were busy at the time, but we knew we wanted to squeeze it in before getting to our end of year discussions. So here we are. So we'll start spoiler free as we always do. We'll give you a warning in the middle before we go into spoilers, and we'll go from here. So yeah, so this is a Netflix original film, which has some caveats with it in terms of like anticipation now at this point.
It does, yeah. Even from directors we typically like.
Yeah, because this is the notable thing, is that there's been several films now where I've really liked the director, and then they make a film for Netflix, and I'm like, the examples
It's okay at best.
Yeah, the examples I would bring up are mute. I would bring up Velvet Buzzsaw in this discussion.
Apostle.
That's Apostle's another good one. Yeah, and Apostle was probably the best of those movies, but still.
I didn't see Velvet Buzzsaw yet. I can say that Mute is the worst of those movies. Screw that movie.
Yep, I can't argue with it. So, yeah, so obviously we commit this, but of course the one safety net here is that this has been nominated for awards all over the place, so there must be some merit to it.
It's pretty well regarded.
Yeah, and yeah, so Connor, did you? I mean, before I even want to talk about plot, yeah, just did you enjoy Roma?
No. Here's the thing: it is superbly directed. Cinematography is great. It's full of symbolism and things that I should, but I didn't enjoy it. I didn't end up connecting, and it just kind of fell a bit flat for me, despite all of those things.
Interesting.
Yeah. Perhaps a very controversial opinion.
I was not prepared for this eventuality. I did not see that coming, honestly. Oh. I liked it more than you did.
Well, and I want to make this clear. I still think it's a really good film. It's so well made. It just didn't land for me. It didn't connect. And with the film like this, when all it's about, it doesn't have a true narrative. It's just this character piece. If it doesn't connect like that, it just, kind of almost fails.
Well, fear not, audience. I liked it quite a bit, so you'll be getting some positivity from my side of the screen.
Hey, I've got plenty of positive things to say.
Yes, but they all have, like, now that you've revealed what you think, though, there's going to be all these, like, this negative spin on everything. It's going to be this undercurrent the entire time of, yeah, like, it's doing this thing well, but there's always going to be a but.
Well, here's the thing. The but is the same throughout the movie. I just didn't connect. There's I'm not going to have to re-say that every time. It's not like, oh, it's doing this, but it's doing that wrong. It's no. There's very little that it's doing wrong. It's just not hitting me right.
I'd love to hit you right.
I bet you would. I'm sure a lot of people would right now when we say this. As soon as I finished this movie, I was like, shit, this is going to be controversial.
I've got a crowbar that's got Jason Todd engraved on it that's just waiting for you.
Yeah, I bet you do.
So yeah, no, Roma is fantastic. To give you an alternative.
I will say this isn't the first time I felt this with Cuarón.
Interesting.
I have a similar feeling with Children of Men.
I quite like Children. I like this more than Children of Men, but I do still quite like Children of Men.
But I have a similar feeling where I like a lot of the things it's doing. That that's got a bit more of a narrative that I can latch on to.
Hey, I'll give you an Alfonso Cuarón film I don't connect with.
I know where you're going with this one.
It's this stupid wizard movie, and there's this big tree and stuff. Some snot-faced little twerp and his two friends.
Yep.
Yes. Prisoner of Alakazoo or something to that effect. I don't know what it was.
You know exactly what it is, and you're doing this just to spite me. You just want to make me correct you.
No, I thought Roma was fantastic. I think It's one of those films where within seconds I get what the filmmaking is going to be like, and it's like, okay, right. Because Alfonso Cuarón in this film loves his slow pans back and forth. He loves it.
90% of the movie is wide shot, slow pan.
Yes, but there's close-ups as well, and I think
there is, yeah.
The punctuation of the close-ups is very smart in how it handles those. But what it really does is that it makes everything feel lived in and real. And obviously it's in black and white. If you didn't know that, it's in black and white, and everything it's 2.35:1. But it's got all these big wide shots, and the camera's just slowly panning left to right, and it has
gorgeous.
And it is a gorgeous film. But I think one of the things that it does so well in doing this is that even though you know that on set, like they rehearsed this down to a T so that the actress would be in the right place at the right time for each part of the shot, because the shot's going for a long time. They're very long, uninterrupted shots.
Yeah.
But it has this feeling of it's just catching what the character is doing and no more. It never feels like it's so choreographed where it's like, no, she's in the perfect place. No. It feels like, I'll put it this way, it doesn't feel like the camera's following the actor. It feels like the camera's just going back and forth like a security camera, and it's just happening to catch the relevant things.
No, it is, because it's not like she's always center screen, or she's always in the right third quadrant, or anything like that. It never lines up neatly. It's just she's in frame and she's in focus.
It does it so much. It's so good. Obviously most of them are pans. There's one or two that are actually tracking shots. There's one big one towards the end that is more of a tracking shot than a pan, but
yeah,
it does this repeatedly, and it makes the world feel lived in. It's all about showing the world and showing these long interrupted shots of her working in this house. She's a live-in maid for this middle class family, and she's going around cleaning things up, cleaning after the kids, cleaning after the dogs, doing laundry, all these kind of things. And it's showing you the chaos, because she'll be walking into one room, there's kids running around, and then the camera will pan back over, and then the dog will be barking. It's showing you how chaotic the world is.
Yeah.
Even though on the surface level, she's a live-in maid, how chaotic could it be? It's just a family and a dog. But it's showing you how chaotic the world that she lives in is. And I think ultimately this film succeeds at being a character study of someone who you would probably not give a second thought about, but it's a personal story in what she's going through and what she cares about, in the middle of a world that's kind of chaotic. And it's chaotic in the house, it's chaotic in a larger sense because there's like political unrest going on in the country, and there's other things going on. The family itself has unrest between the husband and wife, and that's going on. Like there's all these factors, all these layers of things around her are getting more and more crazy, but she's at the middle of it all because we're focusing everything through her eyes, and that's what makes it work.
Yeah,
it's
definitely
a fantastic character study. So
I can't argue with any of this. It's I agree with everything you just said.
I know, but usually when I say something, you give me a response of some kind, so I have to.
I'm thinking like, how do I phrase this? Because it is fantastically done. That's what's so frustrating. I don't think I've ever been at such a loss for how to convey how I feel about this film, or any film, because it's so weird. I don't think I've ever been in this position.
This is just like you walking into a review saying, I'm wrong, I know I'm wrong, I can't tell you why I feel this way, but I'm just wrong.
It kind of is. I agree that I'm wrong. Like, it is, when you go, you start that by going, oh, it's a fantastic film. And I agree. Even though I didn't enjoy it. And I don't think I've ever felt like that. Usually, if I didn't enjoy it, I go, no, there are all these things wrong with it.
Mm-hmm.
But there's not.
So we talked about the camera work and direction, which is flawless. Another element I think is pretty damn flawless is the performance from the lead actress, who I believe this was the first thing she'd ever done as an actress.
Yeah, that's mad.
Yalitza Aparicio, if I'm saying her name right, who plays Cleo, the main character.
It's crazy. Imagine first ever acting role, like ever, not even like small things, right? It's just ever. And then, oh hey, you're up for best actress at the Oscars.
It's a very I hate to use this word because I just did a solo review for 8th grade, and I must have said the word authentic about 100 times in that review, and you, I think, have seen that now and would probably agree the use of that word was very apt throughout. But again, this feels very authentic. You get the feeling that Cuarón didn't want an actress, he wanted a person, if that makes any sense.
This is obviously very personal, so based on his life.
Yeah. So when we see a living maid named Cleo,
No. He's one of the
I'm
kids.
joking. I was a
Yeah.
joke.
I'm just you know, because you will twist my
I
words. I
just
know you will.
I knew it was semi-autobiographical. Yes.
Yeah, yeah. You will twist things. I think in an interview when it was coming out, he said like 90% of this is from his memory.
That's interesting.
Uh,
And you kind of get the sense, yeah, all these little things that are happening, they all feel like mundane little details that you only get because that they happened, right?
yeah, yeah,
Um,
definitely. It's why the chaos feels real.
did he ever say which kid he was specifically, or is it just sort of general?
Uh,
Doesn't matter.
I want to say Paco,
Okay.
which is the older one, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, because it's set in 1970. At least most of it is, because there's a new year at one
yeah,
point.
yeah.
But
Probably about halfway through.
um, yeah, and there's not a whole lot of setup for like some of the bigger things going on in the country. You hear a couple of hints about it, but mostly it just kind of happens. And it's the idea that Cleo herself isn't really involved or paying attention to this as much.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's history. If you wanted to read it, you could.
Yeah, you can go and look into it. Yeah, I mean, I don't know that much about Mexican, politics and history of this time period, or a
No,
time
me either.
period. So I got what the movie told me and pretty much nothing else.
Yeah,
But it feels like the movie doesn't want to focus on the why. It's just about here.
is how it affects.
Yes, hear how it affects.
Yeah,
I wouldn't surprise me though if there is some subtle like subtext and some of the other things going on. Because one of the things that I was getting from this movie, outside of the obvious, because there's some feminist angles here, of course, between the main character of Cleo and even Sophia, who's the wife of the family who owns the house. There's feminist angles from that. I think there's also a lot of class.
oh, definitely. Yeah,
I think that's one of the main themes of the movie is class and how, obviously she's at this lower rung because she's the maid, and then you get the family who are the middle class, and you've got all these differences between them. And then there's,
yeah,
to a point, I'd almost argue, and the dogs, because there's a lot of dog symbolism throughout the film as well.
yeah.
I feel like the dogs are then kind of the next rung down, and there's definitely a scene where she's kind of realizing that she's not that much higher up than the dogs are in terms of their place in the household.
Yeah.
There's a scene, without getting to spoilers, but there's a scene where she's looking at all these old dog heads that have all been stuffed and they're on a wall, and then the dog's licking her hand, and it's kind of this, like, they're all used for their purpose in the house, and then that's just kind of it,
Yeah. The other huge piece of symbolism that's recurrent is the planes, which was I feel like they must have just gone, because screw it, we're going to have to just keep them in because they're so often, and they're modern jets, right? They're not like you'd get in the 70s. So it must have been just a case of location shooting worked in. But one of the earliest shots in the movie is like, we open on this puddle of water, basically. And you get this, reflection of a plane. And, to go into the class thing, it's like, no, that's the top. That's what you want to aim for.
Yeah.
Because, she's at the bottom, on the floor, with the water, and then, the plane's at the top.
Yeah, because the opening titles play out over just this water swishing back and forth in this driveway. And then one of the things that the husband keeps complaining about is there's too much dog shit on the driveway. And we see that she's washing it every day, like in the morning. But like by the time he gets home, it's like, there's shit all over the place because the dog's just...
Dog shit a lot.
Yeah, the dog's shitting a lot, yeah. So that there's all of this stuff is baked in there. And it's there, it's prevalent throughout the entire film, and it's not a film with a big action climax. There's an emotional core, there's an emotional realization in the third act that kind of brings it all home. There's kind of hope for the future that things are getting better, but it is kind of baby steps, and it's definitely very personal. The improvements that happen by the end are very, very personal and only really specific to this household, as opposed to something that's affecting everything.
Yeah, definitely. And it's you say there's no action climax. Not in the sense of it's action packed, but there is a fantastically tense scene.
Oh, there is. Yeah, I know exactly
towards
what you're talking
the
about.
end. That's the action climax of the film. The closest you'll get.
Yeah. But it's not an action film. It's there's some wonderfully shot scenes where there is this great tension, because of random things that are happening or because of emotional things that are happening in the scene. But they're really well handled. Like, it's one of those films where, like, the film's like 2 hours 20 minutes, and I feel like, if this was shot in a conventional way by another director, it probably would be like 100 minutes long. It'd probably shave off almost an hour. But the style and the pacing of the scenes is what makes the film, and that's what makes it this long. And
definitely. Like the opening credits, you know, you're talking about the wars.
Yeah.
That's probably a good 5 or 6 minutes.
Yeah, for me, this is one of the styles that I love in cinema when it's done well. It's this confidence. It's not so much that the camera's being flashy, because for the most part it's not. It's just been really confident. It's been really confident in what it's doing. And I say it, I really mean the director and the cinematographer are being confident, but it has this feeling of confidence throughout everything it's doing. And you know, it's one of the things you like to joke about my love for Bellatar films and how long those shots go on and how much they just rest on things. But this is kind of halfway towards that, right? It's definitely not as out there as those movies are, but it's on the path to that style where no, we're going to sit and just pay attention to this thing for 30 seconds before the actor walks into the frame, or we're going to sit and pay attention to this thing before this happens.
No, I'm with it. It's a confidence in knowing what they're doing. It's something I always use the music analogy a lot. If you look at like metal music, for example, like, you know, you'll get some bands where it's all these flashy guitar solos all over the place, right? And then maybe that, you know, over a decade they'll evolve and it'll come down, and it's like no. They learned that, you know, all those flashy music pieces, they're just covering stuff up. It's the core, but you know, the core songwriting underneath. Once that's at a point where they're confident with it, that stuff tends to go away a bit. And I feel like it's the same in film here, where especially in the editing as well. Like, you know, you get a lot of quick cutting, like, oh, well, we're not sure about this shot, so we'll move away and look at something else, right? It's covering up the core filmmaking element, whereas here it's like, no, this is exactly what it's supposed to be, and they know that, and they didn't feel the need to try and cover it up with something else.
Yeah, a lot of long takes. And it's worth mentioning as well is those long panning vista shots. That's the cat ticking over an empty can. All those panning vista shots, they're only ever when it's a world that Cleo herself is in and knows well, right? It's always from her perspective, essentially. The reason why I'm bringing that up is I'm thinking, like, the first time the dad comes home, it turns into all these close-ups inside the car because she's not in the car, and that's not her world is in the car. She knows this house and the like her little side house because that's the world she lives in. So we get all these big pans of what's going on in this old, because all this location is open to her, but inside that car and the mystery of what his life is separate. So it becomes all these really kind of like cryptic close-ups of just the hands and the eyes and the, like, all these things. And I think one of the other big themes that are going in the film is the idea of those in power basically being in over their heads. I think the greatest symbolism for this is the fact that they've got this driveway and the dad's car barely fits in it, and as he comes into the driveway he has to be really careful not to like scrape the side of the car.
It's within like a centimetre of either side. Yeah,
until he gets to the door and there's a little bit more room to get out, but like it's really absurd. And there's a great thing later on when we see like a new car drives inside the driveway, and it's like a much smaller car, and it's this sensible thing where it says, we have this driveway, we should buy a car that fits in the driveway.
Yeah.
Because it's sensible.
Exactly.
We're not going to be ridiculous about it and be egotistical about it. And you know, I think that's why the things it's going. But I think I'll save talking about any more of the details of the plot and whatnot for spoilers. But yes, performance. Not a whole lot of music to talk about. The music tends to be in.
It's all source music, diegetic stuff.
But more specifically, it's all in scene music. It's not. Yeah. It's not source music that's added on as a soundtrack. It's all if there's a band playing inside the scene, then you'll hear the band playing. But that's
the radio, for example, TV. Yeah, but that's it.
But there's no score. There's nothing like that. It's all again, and it adds to the slow camera work where it's like no, we're just in the world. We're not making this a movie. This is an experience, if you want to call it that. If you want to be pretentious about it.
It's one of the few elements that I'm maybe not as keen on is the lack of any score entirely. Pretentious is not quite the way I don't want to use that word because I don't feel like that's where I'm going. But the idea of it's so baked into trying to be authentic that it almost doesn't want to be a film at that point. It's trying to be real.
I don't know if I agree. Well, it doesn't want to be a film anymore. Because I've seen tons of movies, especially foreign movies, where they don't use score and they don't use anything like that. They like the more kind of natural At least presented as natural sound. Obviously, I'm sure there's tons of Foley happening. I'm sure there's tons of things to make it sound good. But
yeah.
But they're presenting it as if no, this is all just the sound.
Yes, yeah.
But yeah, no, for me that was fine. For me, it added to the kind of the suspense is not the right word. It's nor tension. Atmosphere. I was going to say ambience is maybe the better word.
Yeah, mood.
There's an ambience and mood to just kind of like waiting for the things to happen. And some people who don't like slow moving films are like, things to happen, so it's boring then. As you were saying, no. Like for me, I find waiting for the thing to happen in a scene in this film way more engrossing than like, I don't know, take your pick. Ant-Man and the Wasp. Right?
Can't say, still haven't seen it.
You haven't seen it, but like, and I had a decent enough fun with that movie, but for me, there was more engagement with me as a viewer, where I'm kind of sucked into the world of this movie, versus that film where I'm chuckling and I'm enjoying some characters, and it's just fine light entertainment. This is something that, it requires you to sit down, pay attention, and be surrounded by the world, right?
Yeah. It says a lot over the last couple of weeks or two, that been, trying to catch up on a bunch of 2018 movies, as we said at the start of this. Obviously, we've only done reviews for a handful, but we've both watched more. I still haven't put Ant-Man and the Wasp on. Not even in the background.
But you're going to watch it before you get to the next Marvel movie.
Yeah.
You will. You will.
I know.
You're still,
Which isn't that long away.
I know. Connor's still pretending that he might not see Endgame if it's 3 hours long.
I'm not. Not in the cinema.
I mean, me and Matt will review it. We don't need you, but
yeah, no, that's fine. I don't need to drag that review down.
I'm sure Tim might even want to be on that review. I know he
was on the last one, wasn't he?
He was, yeah. If schedules permit, I'm sure he'd love to be on. So, but yeah, so do spoilers? Full spoilers for
I
Roma?
think we've spoken about everything else.
Alright, so let's talk about the plot then. Let's talk about what's actually happening in this movie. And I'll probably put out some more specific moments and touches that I like in the filmmaking that I can do now. Yeah. But the main plot here is that she set up, so there's two live-in maids, so it's her and another girl, and the other girl's got a boyfriend. She's like, hey, he's got this cousin, let's go out and on our day off, let's have fun and go to the movies or whatever. And we have this scene where they're out and they meet up with these two guys, and the guy whose name was, I want to say,
began with an F.
It was like Furman, I think.
Furman, yeah, that sounds familiar.
Yeah, it's Furman. And he's like, hey, it's a beautiful day, would you not rather go to the park rather than sit in the dark? And she's like, yeah, sure, and they leave. But it just cuts to them like a hotel room. They've went and got a hotel room, and they've had sex. And it's actually one of the most bizarre scenes of the film, because he wants to show her his martial arts skills, because that's what he's really passionate about now. And he's still naked though from the sex, so he's got this like shower rod, this curtain rod that he's taken off the wall,
and he's just twirling it around.
Twirling what around?
Take your pick.
Both the rod and his penis are twirling around.
Yes, both rods.
Yes, very very heavily. Do you know what I love about this scene is I think the purpose of this. I think the purpose of him being naked in this scene. I think there's a few different things. I think one of it is to show how ridiculous it truly is, because he is naked and you can't take your eye off the fact that his wiener's just flapping around from her perspective.
Really can't, can you?
I think the other thing is also the arrogance that he thinks that he's so good at this and this is so impressive that none of it is ridiculous. Like, again, much like the husband with the car in the thin driveway. This is him thinking, yeah, there's nothing about this that's weird or ridiculous. Like, I am so confident and like strong that this will look good.
Yeah, you could. I think also it's more just he's genuinely passionate, right? And the being naked is more just it's who he is, right? This is genuinely who he is. Being into this, it's not necessarily an act.
Oh, I don't think it's an act, but I think he's in over his head. I think that's one of the themes of the movie. I think he thinks this is more impressive than it actually is.
Oh yeah.
And I think that ties into the husband with the car. And then, of course, she ends up pregnant. She realizes she's pregnant. And this is a really great scene. She goes to Sophia, and she tells her, and she's really worried about telling her. She's worried she's going to get fired for being pregnant. And Sophia is actually very understanding and offers to take her to the doctor, and takes her to the doctor, and goes and gets her checked out, and, gets a due date,
Throughout the film, she's really supposed to like, hey, well, let's go buy furniture, like a crib and stuff.
Yeah, well, I think that's what's interesting. Is Sophia goes a bit back and forth, where the husband seems to like think the maids are shit because they're not doing their jobs properly, and Sophia, whenever she gets angry or frustrated about her marriage, she lashes out at Cleo. She does. She gets mean. She demands to do her job. She blames her for things. This is a thing, but there's these moments where like she kind of connects with her and says, "No, I'm going to be a decent human being." And she's understanding, and this is one of those scenes. But she tells Furman in the theater. They're in the cinema watching a movie, and they're kissing and stuff. Everything's all happy, and she's like, "Oh, by the way, I'm late. I think I'm pregnant." And like, and this is one of the beautiful things that I was going back to with waiting for things to happen, right? Where it makes you sit in the uncomfortable silence. And it's
so this is more waiting for something to not happen.
Yeah. So they're in the movie, and like, you know, so she tells him this, and he hugs her, and it looks kind of fine, like a nice reaction that'll go well, right? And he turns to watch the movie for like 20 seconds, and we're sitting there waiting, and then, you know, he turns and says, "Oh, hey, I have to go to the bathroom. I'll be back." And she's like, "Well, I think we're near the end." He's like, "No, I need to go now, but I'll be back in a minute. It's fine." You know, and he leaves, and then we just sit there with her with nothing, and he's not there.
Yeah.
And then eventually, you know, the credits roll, lights come up, and he's still not back. She looks around, she grabs his jacket, and it cuts to the outside, and he's ran without telling her where he lives, and he just basically doesn't want anything to do with us. And you feel like, okay, so she's been abandoned, which then ties into, of course, the fact that the husband of the family, Sophia's husband, is abandoning her and the whole family for a mistress. That's kind of what we will learn over the course of the film.
Yeah.
So
not on a research trip, is it? That's what he's telling them.
Yeah, that's what he was saying at first. Yeah. And you know, obviously some parallels here that like, you know, both Sophia and Cleo kind of bond because they've both been abandoned. They find solidarity with each other in a way that, you know, you don't necessarily see early on, because it seems like, you know, Sophia does look down on Cleo, but there's those hints like the pregnancy scene that kind of reveal that she does care about her.
And I think it's interesting throughout the film, like even by the end, they're kind of a family unit at points, but even at the very end, there is still that social hierarchy where Cleo is still below the family.
There is, but I think at the end, because obviously one of the big climaxes of the film in the beach, we'll get into what happens in that scene, but, you know, when she kind of like confesses something emotional, and, you know, the family hug her, they're all hugging each other. It's one of the posters for the film, actually, is all them hugging on the beach. Yeah. And, you know, Sophia's kissing her on the head and saying, you know, we love you, we care about you, things like that. Like, this is a weird comparison to make, but I can't think of any other way of doing it. It almost turns into like an Alfred and Bruce kind of, like, sure, he's still the butler, he still does things for him,
yeah,
but like, you know, when they go back, she's still doing laundry, she's still doing things. But because I'd say one of the arcs of the movie is Sophia kind of realizing that Cleo is just like an important part of the family, who's loyal, who the kids like, the kids care about,
but they just happen to pay.
They just happen to pay, because there's some great scenes early on. It's like when the dad comes home and they're all watching TV, and Cleo, like, you know, one of the kids like pulls her down to sit with them as they're watching, and then seconds later the dad or whatever gives her an order to go do something, and she has to leave. And it's like, yeah, for a second there you were lulled into thinking you were part of the family, but then you were reminded you're not. And I feel like by the end, yeah, her job is to do all these things, but it's probably going to be a much happier living environment, I imagine. At the end of the film, I think that's part of it. Is Sophia gets over herself and sort of realizes what is around her, what is loyal, what is valuable, and that Cleo's part of that. So going back to, you know, Furman doing a runner, she eventually tracks him down later in the film, like after the whole New Year's stuff happens. Yeah, she tracks down the other girl's boyfriend, because it's his cousin, and makes him take her to him, and he's at like a training thing for his martial arts. It's quite a big class. It's like 60, 70 people probably, all spread out in this field or whatever. And we've got this instructor who makes them he gives this speech, and then he makes one of them blindfold him, and he does this thing where he stands on one leg with his hands kind of interlocked at the top, and they're all kind of like scoffing, like, oh, well, this isn't that impressive. And he's like, no, do it then, do it with your eyes closed. And no one can do it, but notably the crowd who are just watching start doing this as well to see if they can do it, including Cleo. And Cleo's the only one. Everyone else is kind of tripping and falling over, but she can do it. Yeah.
Do you know what? I buy that this is that hard to do, because do you know the amount of times where I've gone to get like a drink or some food or something in the kitchen, I've turned all the lights out, I'm walking back to you know, a different room to eat in, and you know, it's completely dark. and I'm like, shit, I don't know how balanced this is. I don't know if I'm gonna spill something because I can't tell. Like, even though it's in my hand, and if I'm looking at it, or not even looking at it, it's just in my peripheral vision, it's completely fine, right? As soon as it's completely dark, I don't know, and I've occasionally dropped something because of that.
So what do you think the symbolic nature of this is then, that Cleo can do this? That everyone else is failing, but she can pull it off?
Yeah.
What does it say about her character?
See, it's not a she's special thing.
Yeah, it's not.
Because I think that's the immediate reaction that a lot of people have is, oh, she's the only one doing it, right? So she must be just better. And I don't think it's that at all, because that doesn't track with anything.
Yeah, I think it's kind of part of what I was saying earlier about the others being in over their heads or being arrogant or whatever. I think she doesn't. She's completely self-aware about herself. She's not trying to prove anything. She's just doing it. She understands who she is. I think that's part of it.
Yeah. So many planes in this scene. I don't know if you were noticing them.
Yeah, there was definitely a couple. I noticed a couple for sure.
It was like every 2 minutes or so. This is a relatively long scene that that we watch, and every minute and a half or so, 2 minutes, there's just another one.
I mean, if there was one scene where they got some planes and they couldn't avoid it, it was probably this one, and that's why it's in the other scenes.
Yeah, it definitely feels like there's a lot of location shooting because of that.
Yeah, I mean everything I think is location shooting in this. I would actually be surprised if anything was a set. Maybe the hotel room at one point. I think
I remember reading there is more extensive set work than you would think.
Okay, it doesn't feel like it though.
It doesn't, no. It's very, very well done set work, if that is the case.
Yeah.
Because you can't... very rarely could I point and go, oh, that's clearly a set.
Well, maybe the main house is a set.
Yeah.
Or, at least a set enough that... a set that they design next to, like, a real place so they could do all that stuff, like, in and out of the alleyway that they've got going.
Yeah, I think all the interior... It's just a set. I think they probably opened it up a bit more than you'd think, just for the ease of getting the camera around and stuff like that.
Yeah, probably. But, yeah, so that's a very interesting bit. So she actually talks to him after this. She says, hey, Furman, can I talk to you? And he's like, yeah, why did you come and find me? And she's like, well, I'm pregnant and it's your baby. And... He very quickly basically says, no, it's not, and if you ever come back here and try and claim that again, I'll beat you within an inch of your life. And then runs off. And it's like, yeah,
just hops on the back of a van.
Yeah, you're on your own. And and the last time we see him is he's in the militia group that are shooting protesters in the city. And we have this very great scene, and it's probably one of the more action-packed scenes, if you want to call it that, where the grandmother of the family is Brit, because she's there around for most of the film. She's not like a big character in terms of like having her own thing to do, but she's bringing her to get a crib. They're buying her a crib for the baby, and they come to this store and there's a lot of unrest in the streets. We see police all lined up and stuff like that, but we hear, whilst they're inside the shop, we hear gunshots, and this is some of the greatest camera work in the movie. Is the camera, it turns and looks out the window, and we just see what looks like hundreds of extras like running in the street, and there's like gunshots going off.
I think one of my favorite bits of the camera work at this point is obviously they start ducking down, and the camera physically drops as well, so you can see less out of the way. You can still see a bit naturally, but not as much as you could. Yeah,
it emulates what you'd be doing in the scene. It makes the camera feel like it's one of us. It
does, yeah.
Like you're in the scene with them, and then you come back round, and one of the protesters is running the store to run away from the militia group, and these bad guys come in afterwards and demand to know where they've ran to, and they go up and they just shoot them in the store, and everyone's freaking out. And we get this close-up. Someone walks over to the group that Cleo's in, and we see this gun. And I basically said to myself, I bet this is Furman, when it reveals who it is. And the camera, of course, pulls back up, and you see the face, and it's him. And he just kind of stares for a bit and, runs out. Like, that's it.
That is it, yeah.
And it's just how different his life is. She didn't really know him. Not at all. Like,
no.
In no way.
They probably went on a few dates, because there's a little bit of time, obviously, between... that first time and then when she told him that she was pregnant.
Yeah, she was like 3 months pregnant when she actually went to get checked. So.
Yeah, so they've probably been spending some time together during those 3 months.
Because I think it puts a whole different light on him saying, martial arts brought him out of his... Because, he was into crime things before, and, martial arts set him straight. And it puts this light on it where it's like, no, whoever's been training you has had an agenda in mind. This has not been,
Yeah.
you know, just like martial arts, but so you've got that, and she's kind of left on her own. It's you know, it leaves you with that pit in your stomach as the van drives off, or when he runs out the store, like, and she's just left there, kind of in shock and alone. It's really upsetting. But her water breaks in this scene, because of course it does.
And then obviously they can't get straight to the hospital because chaos.
Yes, traffic is backed up because there's all this chaos going on, and they get to the hospital, and we have one of the most heart wrenching things of the whole movie. Is her baby is a stillborn, and they don't hear a heartbeat, and there's this shot where she's right in front of the camera, and they're sort of they do surgery, they take the baby out, and we see the baby in the background. They go to a table that's like sort of further away from the camera,
doing some CPR.
And one of my favorite things about this whole scene is how she is constantly looking over there. The only time she even looks at anywhere else is when, like, the first part of the surgery to stitch her up hurts a little bit, and she kind of, like, flinches and looks at them. But then she immediately, her head goes back, and she's looking over at that baby the entire time. And then, you know, it's all real time. The doctor eventually comes over and says, "I'm sorry, we did everything we could, but your baby's dead." And they let her hold it for a little bit. And she doesn't want to give it up, and she's, it's very upsetting. And it's pulled away from her, and she's left there lying again on her own. Like, again, it's like all this chaos is circling this, but this is the most personal it's been the whole film. Like, it's like it's been getting narrower and narrower and closer, this chaos, until it's kind of hit her here in the film. And yeah, it's heartbreaking. So it's after this where we get the wife, now knowing that, Sophia now knowing that the husband's not coming back. Because there's a really great scene after they come back from the New Year's celebration where they all go to the movies together, and they actually get a glimpse of their dad, who's supposed to be in Canada with another woman.
Yeah,
it's a really simple little moment, but it's really good. But so they got a car, but they go, okay, we're going to go and visit. I can't remember where they said they were going, but they go to the beach basically. They go to the beach.
Yeah.
And they invite Cleo, and Sophia specifically says this is to make her feel better. She's not going for work, so she's not going to do anything for you. This is to make her feel better, and the kids kind of convince her to come because she doesn't really want to. And we get the scene where the mum tells all the kids that their dad's not coming back, and they're all kind of upset. And one of them's hugging Cleo.
Yeah, one of them's crying.
It's a whole thing, and it's the next day in the beach where we get this is probably what you were talking about with the action packed.
Yeah, and Joe, even before we get to that part, I thought it was really interesting. We keep talking about how, she's treated as part of the family, right? Yeah. From this late part of the movie, and she's here specifically not to work, right? She's just there, and it's immediately the mom was like, can you watch the kids for a few minutes? And even though it's genuine, right? It's almost just ingrained into us, like, oh, she can watch the kids.
That's a pretty normal thing to ask someone. Let's say she was there with her sister, or she was there with a friend.
No, I get it, but I think she just immediately. It's just the first day. It's so routine for her to say that. Even then, it felt like it to me.
But yeah, so it's like a couple of the kids want to go into the water, and it's like you can go in near the shore, but you're not allowed to go out far because Cleo can't swim. So Cleo can't come and get you if something bad happens, basically.
Yeah.
So they're in the water, and we're with Cleo, and it's this beautiful shot looking down the beach, like where there's this completely side shot of her, and then she starts like shouting at the kids, and they're not responding. So she starts.
Yeah, because they walk back. Her and one of the other kids walk back up to the sun lounges, and we have this long walk up first. Then it tells us how far away she is from.
Yeah, it's just this tracking shot. And then she starts walking slowly towards the water. She's getting closer and closer. And this is probably the most beautiful shot of the entire movie. And eventually starts walking in the water, and she's getting, trying to get to the kids. And she eventually gets there, but during this long walk in the water, she's getting hit with waves. The waves are really rough. They're crashing against her. And I couldn't help but feel that this was the perfect symbolism for the entire film, is that she's against the current the entire time. Yeah. And she can't even swim. She's just walking. She's trying her best to just walk against the current, and she can't do it. And she does kind of get through. She does it enough to get to the kids, but it was the perfect symbolism visually for her struggle through the entire film.
I realized that we never tilt. They said this is very specifically a tracking shot, not a pan, because we never pan and see just how far out the kids are.
Never.
Because I think there's a danger of if you'd seen that, it'd be like, they're not actually that far out, right? Potentially.
Yeah.
But obviously she can't swim, so even just not that far out is far enough.
Yeah, because she's right up to her like her chin in water by the time she
Yeah.
gets to them. Like she's not like it's not a safe amount for someone who can't swim. And
Yeah.
so it was almost like every single big wave that hits her, and she has to like wipe her eyes again. It was like the first one's the class system, the second one's the sexism. It was like everyone represented something almost in and of it. I mean, it doesn't really, but you could read it that way. Every wave represents something else. And it was, it's this heartbreaking scene, and she gets the kids, she gets them back, and then Sophia comes running in, and that's where we get this big image of the family all hugging, and like, Sophia came and got, Cleo came and got us, and Sophia's like, oh, thank you, and this is when Cleo admits something. She says, this is the moment where she says, I didn't want to have the baby. I didn't want her to be born. And it's this extra element to the film where there was this guilt because she didn't want this, and she almost felt like she in a roundabout way had killed the kid by not wanting her.
Yeah.
And it's just this touching scene, and the sun's behind them. There's a reason why this is the poster, because it looks gorgeous.
It does look gorgeous.
It looks gorgeous, and it's just this beautiful moment, and it feels that they are like because she's loyal, because she's different than the dad. There's this bond between them that's so different, and I think you can read into it. Why didn't she want a kid? Beyond just the personal reason someone might not to, because she might not be ready, of course. It may be because of the way the class system's set up that she doesn't want a kid in this world right now.
Yeah, I think part of it as well is, I think she sees herself as part of the family to an extent that she already kind of has 4 kids.
Yeah, she already, and she's good with the kids. Like, right from one of the opening scenes, we see her playing with the youngest one, and
yeah,
she's
the kids all like her as well.
Yeah, the kids all really like her.
Yeah.
So, it's one of those things that I always like in movies and TV shows, the idea of the family. It's not about blood. It's just, the family becomes the family that it is. There's nothing that works for me more than just the characters who come together, the group of misfits or whatever. In some cases, because in this case it's like mostly an actual family, and then like the extra element. But it doesn't matter. That's still part of the family. So that's something I always appreciate in terms of messaging. Blood means nothing, and I will stand by that.
Yeah, I'm with you. We've been over this before.
We have been over this before, but it feels relevant.
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
Much like the Scooby Gang on the hit television show Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Can you tell I was trying to get through this without you doing that?
I knew you were waiting for it. I knew you thought it was coming at some point. I was just dragging it out.
I knew it was, which is why I was like, I wonder if I can just nod through this and you'll move on.
I was dragging it out as long as I could before I had to jump in with it.
Yeah. As soon as you started, I was like, God damn it, I know where this is going. Any bloody excuse.
Yeah. So at the end of the movie is like they come back to the house. The dad's taking his stuff. That was part of why they were away from the house for a little bit. And they were saying, "Oh, things are different. It doesn't look quite the same." It's like, "No, it's fine. It'll be good." Like, some of the rooms have changed. Some things have changed, but life goes on. We're still together. The mum's getting a new job. Like, they're coming out stronger as a family on the other side of this, Cleo included. And we had the final shots, her literally get up to the roof, because we know up in the roof is where the water tank is, because she's been up there before for the laundry. So that's where she's going. She's going up to do a task like that. But there is this symbolism of her getting closer to the sky, because we end with a plane
she's
going
going
overhead.
up towards those planes. Yeah, like I said,
she's getting closer. She's went up a little bit in the world, and not even in job, just in how she feels, just in terms of how she feels treated by other people. Things are just a little bit better than they were before. Went through this crisis and came out on the other end. We lost over the New Year's stuff. It's worth mentioning when they're having the New Year's celebration at the cousin or the uncle's house or whatever it is, that there's a fire in the forest, and both the middle class families and all the servants' families, because there's a bunch of them all together, right? Because at one point we go to a bar that's separate, that's like just all the servant families that are there. And there's a couple of really great symbolism moments here. One is, this other woman's giving Cleo a drink, and she's like, "Oh, I'm pregnant, I can't." And she's like, No, one little sip won't hurt. And she goes to take a drink out of this cup, and someone immediately, accidentally bumps into the back of her, and the cup drops and smashes.
Yeah, it's a bit of a bad omen, because the thing is, to a good new year, or whatever the year was, I think 71, and to your baby's health.
Yeah.
That it smashes, and it's like, well, shit.
Yeah, I think it's also symbolic for how she feels in a way, like she can't want anything nice because it won't end well. And sure enough. And then the other symbolism thing is there's this big fire. So all the families, both rich and poor, all go out to help fight. Because if the forest fire gets to the houses, they're done. So they're all working together with buckets to put out the fires.
Except one woman who's strolling around with a wine glass.
And one dude in a costume who counts down to New Year's and then sings a song.
Yeah.
But what I liked about this, symbolically, is to me this was saying that the current class system is unsustainable. It was like, ultimately, chaos is going to keep happening, and it's only going to get put out if the classes actually like work together, right? This only gets solved with them working together. And maybe it's a bit on the nose, maybe it's a bit, it
is a little bit, yeah,
obtuse, but it worked for me in the scene because it was like clearly this is here, and so no, I kind of loved it. The filmmaking was working for me, the character was working for me, the emotional beats in the last half really hit home.
This is why I'm so frustrated, because I should love it. I agree with everything, but ultimately it was just a case of I didn't quite connect with the emotional beats from Cleo. It never quite landed for me. Didn't hit me in the way that they should, and that kind of really, I mean, that's the point of the movie, and that just for some reason wasn't working for me. Even though on a technical level, acting, across everything is working as it should be, it just didn't work for me.
No, I think she's great. I think the character's inherently this, this quiet person, and it's a great performance. I think it's an exercise, this film, in just every single scene you get the feeling for the mood in the room, right? It's almost concerned with that as much as it is with anything else. And some movies don't even think about that, it doesn't feel like that when you're watching them. But every single scene, it's like, no, here's the world that she inhabits. Here's the surroundings. Because the movie is as much about the surroundings as about her, but she is our lens through it. And she's just one victim of this crazy world. But, the hope is that she'll come out in the end, and the strength, comes by the end of the film. So, no, it's touching, and I'm sure it's steeped in subtext that even we didn't hit on. I'm sure it is.
Oh, absolutely. There's a lot going on.
There's a lot going on. I'm sure you could write a thesis on this film and the political side of things. I
am sure someone will.
And they probably will. But what stuck out to me was the class differences, the feminism, and a couple of other little touches. But that was the real thing, and just the core character study. No, it's great. It's one of the best original Netflix movies for sure. Like,
Oh yeah.
So no, Roma is fantastic. So there you go. What are you rating it, Connor?
I don't know. It's weird because there's two numbers in my head. One is what it should be, right? Based on everything.
Mm-hmm.
And one is how I actually feel after watching. Like, how I feel with it not landing.
Yeah.
And so I think the first number would be like a 9. But I can't as a personal score, that doesn't reflect my experience. So I think I'll have to come out and give it like a 7.
Okay. Yeah, I'm going with a straight 9 myself. That was fantastic.
I get it. I get, like, everyone who says, "Oh, I love this film," who's like, "Oh, I hope gets all the awards. It's deserving all the praise it's getting." I completely get it. I wish I felt the same way.
So yeah, when we get to our top 10s, now you've already seen these on YouTube. If you're not seeing this early on Patreon, but when Connor has Solo, a Star Wars story, above Roma, I just want to point out the problems with that.
My top 10, it's a very personal thing. It's not about objective quality. It's about enjoyment and how I felt watching the film.
Which objectively makes you a horrible person. Yes, I agree.
That doesn't. That's how it should be. And yes, I enjoyed Solo more than this film. Do I think Solo is a better film? Probably not. I'll give you this one. But did I enjoy it more? Yeah.
Okay. Okay, 9 out of 10 for me. That is Roma. So you can, of course, let us know what you think of the film in the comments below. You can like and subscribe, all that stuff. Let's tell you about Patreon.com though. Patreon.com/MailFuzzTV is where you can go to really support us and everything we do here. You can support us for as little as $1 per month. That gets you access to early stuff. This, for example, is a week early for patrons.
Yeah, it means next year when we're squeezing in all the 2019 movies late, you'll see these before the top 10.
That's true, you get that. Starting in March, me and Tim are doing a bonus episode of Screams After Midnight, exclusive to patrons every month. That'll be at the $1 tier as well. We just started a Discord, and there's a Patreon-only Discord channel, which you'll get access to. So, bunch of stuff at the $1 tier. But there's also the $5 tier where you get to vote and stuff, and other things, and then so on and so forth, and sponsor tiers, and producer tiers and all that. But to focus on the bulky ones, your $1 and $5, there's a lot of stuff going on there. So have a look, see if there's anything you want, or if you just want to support us and get that mildly fuzzy feeling in the pit of your stomach. But that's it.
And as far as movies go coming up, we'll be shifting gears next week.
Yes, next week we're shifting to Batman movies because March is Batman month, because it is both the 80th birthday of Batman and the 1000th issue of Detective Comics coming out in March. So obviously patrons will get those in the last week of February starting because they get them a week early, but there are March's batch of movies for the month. So
shift gear from all these 2018 movies to just enjoy some Batman for a month.
And annoyingly, we switched all of our designs over after the first, because we recorded a couple of those in advance.
Shit, we did.
Yeah, so I'm gonna see what I can do about jerry-rigging some retroactively, but
slap it on top and force it in that way.
Yes, but it had like a specific Batman overlay, which I'm going to try and do a new Batman version of the new one and slap that on top.
I actually think, given that this is already a yellow-based theme,
that'll look better.
Should come across quite nice.
Yeah, but it'll be swapping the text to black, and then it'll have a yellow oval. Yeah. So I'll see how it goes. We'll see how it goes. I'll be tinkering with that next week. Actually, I'll be taking that tomorrow because we're recording another one in advance tomorrow, so I should probably have it ready for that.
You should, yeah.
Yeah, but that is us though. That has been 121 in Flux. Get us on the Twitters at mailed_fuzz, and you can also buy merchandise over at the stores. There's links in the description to the US and UK stores. Get yourself some t-shirts, hoodies, hats, whatever, if you see fit. But that is us. So thank you once again for watching or listening. We always appreciate it. Keep watching movies, guys, and we will see you next time.